Everyone wants to be there on Sunday, but as every short tracker will tell you, there is no Sunday without Saturday night. And every week, all across the nation, late models own Saturday night. This is the ballad of the sport's backbone, its hometown, its weekly star, and its greatest racing. This is Saturday night. This is On Tour. Welcome to the first episode of On Tour here on the ATYL network. My name is Buddy Pulley, and you're probably wondering who I am and what this is. Well, as part of the expansion of ATYL, like many other content creators here on the platform, I come from somewhere else. I used to have a YouTube channel called Big Motor Small Blade, and that channel is still up and running with two of my best friends, Seth and Chuck. So go check that out. We had a NASCAR podcast. We did some IndyCar coverage. But one thing that we really took off was our late model content. We started the show On Tour, me and my good buddy Chase Folsom. He's a pretty reputable Cars Tour reporter. He and I saw a void. There wasn't much late model content out there in the YouTube space, and we decided that we were going to be the ones to fill that void. Obviously there's a lot of traction behind late model racing and short track racing in general, with the involvement of Dale Jr., Justin Marks, Kevin Harvick, Jeff Burton, and the Cars Tour, even more, just Kevin Harvick and Dale Jr. going back and, racing in late models. Short track racing, is going through a bit of a renaissance. We see, North Wilkesboro coming back. We see, the Clash going to Bowman Gray. People are clamoring for, short track racing content. And it's been a growing passion of mine here in the last couple years. I've been a race fan ever since I was a little boy. Ever since I can remember, I've been chasing race cars. Over the past couple years, late model racing has caught my eye. I'm from North Carolina, so it's right in my backyard, especially late model stock racing specifically. So when the opportunity presented itself to start this show, it was an absolute blast, to say the least. And it was a void that we were happy to fill, like we said. And Taylor, she proved my point, that people are looking for this. At the end of last year, she approached me and wanted me to come join the ATYL network and bring along what is now season 2 of On Tour. Now that you know who I am, let's talk about why we're here. The Icebreaker at Florence Motor Speedway was this past weekend, serving as the kickoff for the late model stock season. Florence Motor Speedway, let's talk about that first. It's an amazing facility. It's one of the best short tracks that, I know I've ever been to, especially, it's definitely one of the best here in the Southeast. Steve Zacharias, the owner operator, he's done an amazing job upgrading the facilities. He took over back in 2020 and kind of reopened the place. And it's kind of almost taken over the mantle for that region of short track racing from what was the Myrtle Beach Speedway. Of course, we all know Myrtle Beach. They used to host, bush races back in the day, and they hosted a huge late model stock race every November called the South Carolina 400. Well, when Florence Motor Speedway, Steve Zacharias, when the place reopened in 2020, they took over the South Carolina 400. They've run it, the past, 5 years. And ever since then, Florence Motor Speedway has just been on this upward trajectory. Back in 2022 was the first time I went there. That was when Dale Jr. ran the Gold and Black Bass Pro Shops car. And obviously people showed up. That's what people do. That's what Dale Jr. does. He brings people to the racetrack. And, he's run there several times since then. And every time I go back, there's a new upgrade to the track, whether it be, amenities for fans, greenery around the racetrack, upgrades to, just the overall visual aspect of it. It's been, like I said, it's had its own revival, and it's really good to see because it is such a good racetrack. It is everything that makes a racetrack great. They call it the Diamond in the Southeast. There's a reason for that. It is an old, worn out, abrasive surface, much like its, neighbor down the road for NASCAR, Darlington Raceway. It's kind of the same deal, which it makes sense, kind of that, anytime you build a racetrack that's, near the coast, you're gonna get the surface is going to be built, or the aggregate, I guess, to make the surface is going to, be used, using things like seashells, sand, a lot of things that make the surface not only abrasive, but just, really conducive to wearing out tires. And that's why we see Darlington be the way it is. That's why we see Florence be the way it is. And it produces some really good racing, some multi-groove racing, and it's become one of the premier short tracks here in the Southeast for sure. And the Icebreaker is one of its marquee events. It happens every February, and it's this alongside the South Carolina 400. They're two of the biggest late model stock races on the season. Getting into this year's running of the Icebreaker, it was Matt Cox who scored the victory, his first marquee win at Florence Motor Speedway. And for those of you who don't know Matt Cox, that's a pretty big deal because Matt Cox has been pretty damn good at Florence Motor Speedway over the years, winning countless, weekly races. He's kind of been the guy there. And something that's, eluded him is a win either here in the Icebreaker or in the South Carolina 400 in the fall. And really this weekend, it was the perfect weekend for him. He was pretty uncontested. He was one of the fastest cars in practice. He won the pole, and, he, stayed in the top three pretty much the entire race. He, let Tristan McKee get out there and lead for a little bit, but looking at the lap times, he was consistently the fastest car and kind of let Tristan get out there and burn his stuff up a little bit. And towards the end of the race, Matt Cox, he went up there and he took it and he never looked back, and he was pretty uncontested on any restart and throughout any of the last runs of the race there. It was obviously a huge win for Matt, being such a marquee event. We got to talk to Matt after the race and how much this means to him and the entire Elliott and McCumbee team, as well as his battle with Tristan McKee there at the end of the race.
Yeah, we've tried hard to win this race several times, and we've had really good race cars here over the past couple years, and just had some bad luck, misfortune, and it's special for us to put this thing together at home track today. And had a good race car, a lot of good competition here, and it's just a big win for us to pull it off.
Now, you're running behind McKee there for a long time. Were you just kind of biding your time and waiting for him to use his stuff up, or were you just, what was the move there?
Yeah, he's really good too, and he's got a good race car. I just kind of wanted to ride, and he wanted to be out front there, so we just kind of fell in line behind him, and just, I sized him up a couple times to see what he had, and I'd run up to him, and I kind of tell what his car was, that I felt like he was going to trend a little free if we really put some pressure on him, and, we had that restart with like 30 to go, and I just kind of decided to just go ahead and kind of get out front in some clean air, and we kind of try to drive away and then kind of sit back and ride some once we got some separation to the end. We were just fortunate enough to be able to do that.
As you heard there, when he wanted to go, he went. There wasn't much keeping the 51 out of victory lane on Saturday. Let's take a look at the rest of the results from the Icebreaker at Florence. Taking a look at the results from the Icebreaker at Florence Motor Speedway, it was Matt Cox finally scoring a victory in a marquee race at the Diamond in the Southeast. Tristan McKee finishes second after leading much of the early portions of the race, and Caden Kvapil, after stalling his car on a restart, he finishes third. Lainey Busey finishes fourth in her first run in the 03 car for lead podium performance. Darren Krantz rounds out your top five. Mason Diaz finishes 6th, Sam Yarborough in 7th, Landon S. Huffman finishes in the 8th position, and then the Nelson Motorsports driver Carson Lofton finishes 9th, and Doug Barnes Jr. rebounds after being involved in the big one on lap 63 to finish 10th. Connor Hall also involved in the big one. He finishes 11th, Andrew Grady in 12th, Zach Miracle in 13th, Brandon Pearson 14th, Eloy Falcon finishes 15th, Donovan Strauss finishes 16th, Dylan Newsom finishes 17th, Aaron Donnelly recovers from a spin to finish in the 18th position, Casey Kelly in 19th, and Landon Huffman rounds out your top 20. Riley Gentry finishes 21st, Daniel Van Cannon finishes 22nd after being involved in a crash, as well as Alex Meggs and LeVar Scott. They finished 23rd and 24th. Matt Gould almost ended up in the field in turn 1. He finishes 25th. Dustin Storm finishes 26th. Mason Walters, Cody Kelly, and Dexter Canopy III all were involved in the same crash down in turn 1. They finished 27th, 28th, and 29th position. If you've paid attention to late model stock racing in the past couple years, you obviously know the name Caden Kvapil. He's a two-time Cars Tour champion. He won the Martinsville 300 last year and countless other late model races throughout his tenure with Junior Motorsports. And of course, he's going to be running the #1 Xfinity car for JRM this year. But you might not know his brother Caden, who's just as soft-spoken, but maybe just as talented. Caden drove the JRM car a couple times towards the end of last year when Carson was running the Xfinity races for Junior Motorsports. And it was a well-deserved opportunity. And Caden, he got to run the JRM #8 car this past weekend at Florence. And Matt Cox may have won the race, but maybe the drive of the race went to Caden Kvapil. He ended up stalling the car on a restart, which is less than impressive, but his poise to get back through the front through a ton of attrition that we saw throughout the middle of the race, he used it to its benefit and ended up with a 3rd place finish. We got to talk to Caden and about his run in the JRM #8 car, his potential of running that car later on in the year, and as well as what happened on that restart.
Yeah, we made our way from 18th up to the top 10, I think, and we were still kind of saving, kind of trying to go forward. We weren't all that great. I didn't think we were terrible. I think we still had a top 5 car for sure. We just started getting really loose and out of control. I lost all my speed I had, and I came to find out we had a right rear that was going down the whole time, and it was really weird. So we had to stop, or I was just going to cause a big wreck in front of the field. And we were able to come down and get one swap, put a better one on. Not great, but then we had to restart in the back and got lucky with that big pile up in turn 1. I think we got up 10 spots or so from it, and we were able to pick them off one by one after that. We had a good car. We could roll the center and get off really good. So we just probably had to get through the field a little bit quicker and cleaner to have a chance at the lead. And race the 2 in front of me, the 51 and the 7, they were really good. So I got the 3rd, and if we had a green white checkered, I maybe had a chance at that, I feel like, but it was so hard when I got behind people. I just got really tight. So it's still a good race. I can't thank Junior Motorsports enough. They brought me a fast car. They always do. I can't thank Ryan Schaefer enough for helping out my dad, being the crew chief on this thing, and Kelly, Dale, L-Dub, everyone for this opportunity. I can't thank Carolina Car Force, Bass Pro Shops, and Johnny Morris enough.
You think we're going to see you in the 8 car a lot more this year?
Yeah, I think I have a couple more. I'm going to run a few more. I don't know how many. We haven't really got it fully planned out yet, but a couple more, I think. And then the Go Fast Racing number 32 car, their late model stock, I'm going to run a couple times, and as well as their Supers. So got a handful of races on my schedule, kind of just not really chasing points, just going for wins and getting more laps in all these cars, even the Pro Late model. So variety of cars and a bunch of seat time.
With Caden running that 8 car more often this year, it's something that, I wanted to put you all on notice for, because he's definitely going to be forced to reckon with anytime he gets in that #8, as it is the juggernaut of late model stock racing. The Florence Icebreaker was the first race in a little series called the I-95 Showdown. It's a kind of championship that 2 racetracks have put together, the tracks being Southern National Motorsports Park in Lucama, North Carolina, and Florence Motor Speedway, of course. The I-95 Showdown, it's, of course, named after, the route you take to get to both racetracks, which is old famous 2-lane road, I-95, my favorite. But the race, or the series, consist of not only the Icebreaker at Florence. This was the first race. It's going to be the opening race for Southern National, as well as another race at Southern National later on this year. A June race at Florence Motor Speedway, and then there's a points championship intertwined in there, where the top 4 guys advance to the final 2 races, which will be the South Carolina 400 and the Thanksgiving Classic, which are both towards the end of this year, 2 of the last late model stock races of the year. And 2 more drivers will be added to it, and they'll compete for some sort of points championship. I'll put a graphic up, that way you guys can look at it, because if I'm being completely honest, it's a little confusing to me too. But it is something, if we're going to be covering late models, that we have to at least keep an eye out for throughout the entire season. Well, that's all, folks. That's all I got for episode 1 of On Tour. Episode 2 will follow the Cars Tour season opener at New River All-American Speedway, which happens on March 1st. Hopefully this entices you to follow along with us throughout the entirety of the 2025 season, where we cover every ZMAX Cars Tour event and many of the other marquee late model races throughout the season, races like the Icebreaker at Florence. Now, the purpose of this show is not to get you to come here and listen to me yap about late models. Now, I do want you to come and do that, but the overall message I want you to take from this is that you need to support your local short tracks. As you heard in the intro, Sundays don't happen without Saturday night. So keep that in mind, and always go out and support your local short track.
This race is the one that has gotten away from him finally comes home to today. Matt Cox is the winner of the 10th annual Icebreaker at Florence Motor Speedway.